Please.
Yeah, this is a personal solar sex pan. I'm sure we're alive. All right, thank you. Today is October 16th, and I'm calling to order the Solid Waste Committee. I'm Linda Nishioka, Chair. Will the other members please introduce themselves?
I am Deanna Gwen, online, Counselor Ward 4.
Irving Brown, Counselor Ward 5.
Thank you. And we understand that Councillor Varney will be joining us soon, I think in person, but I'm not sure. And so will the staff please introduce themselves?
I'm Ryan Zink, Franchise Administrator and Liaison to this committee.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer.
Callie Langenbach, Budget Manager. Shannon Thomas, Admin Admin.
Great, thank you, everyone. We do have
Enniton.
oh, thank you. Yeah, you know what? Because you're sitting back there, you should be sitting, go right ahead.
I'm finding the back peanut gallery. Jay Joshi, Environmental and Operations Technology Manager, Public Works.
I see Juliana is online also.
Oh, wonderful. Juliana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Juliana Douglas, Climate Action Plan Manager. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. I see that we have to approve the minutes from September 18th. May I hear a motion?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. And everybody in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
aye.
Thank you. Minutes have been approved. We have public comment, but no one has signed up. We do have some people that are here, but they might be just providing.
I want to just mention that
Oh,
that was one that we received.
oh, this is public testimony.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. We did receive public testimony, and this came from the Polk County, where'd it come from? Oh, Brenda McCoy from Montreal.
Yeah.
So this is, and it's in our packet.
Yes.
Yes, it's in our packet. So nobody here in person, but we did receive public testimony. So we're on to action items.
Okay.
Mr. Zink, you get to go into action.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Excuse me. And get us started here. I can remember how to do this. It's been a month since I did it. Okay, here we go. Share. And let's go into presentation mode. Maybe. There we go. Yes, thank you. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us with the Solid Waste Committee today, October 16th. We've got kind of a long agenda. We've got an action item up front here. We'll get that out of the way. So we'll try to move through some of this fairly quickly. First thing is so a little bit of a background. With the RMA Recycling Modernization Act. And this is, by the way, this was, I don't know if anyone read through it, but there's a staff report that was included with the agenda that went out on Tuesday, along with an attachment. So this is additional information to that staff report. As part of the Recycling Modernization Act, one of the requirements for DEQ is to establish statewide recycling contamination reduction goals. So the scope of the conversation here is the contamination of the stuff that's not recyclable that goes into the commingled recycling bins. And so this could be plastic things that people think are recyclable but aren't recyclable. It can be food contamination or soil, food stuff that's on say pizza boxes, or could be things like diapers, or just basically anything that goes in there that shouldn't be there. Another element, so under ORS 459A9292, which is the section right after the first one, requires that local governments that provide recycling services, and I'm paraphrasing over here, establish and implement a program, again, to reduce contamination, and that program needs to include a goal for reducing contamination. That is consistent with the statewide goals. So there's two elements here. One, DEQ to set statewide contamination reduction goals, and then for local governments to adopt a goal that is consistent or could be more stringent, more aggressive, but at least is consistent with the statewide goals. So those goals that the state has set, the first goal relates to high-risk contaminants. Those are items that pose a significant risk to either staff, equipment, or the facilities. And so they have, DEQ has set a 0% or no, zero high-risk contaminants goal for recycling. This is kind of akin to, how many injuries do we want on the job? We want 0 injuries, right? How many incidents do we want? We want 0 incidents. So is it attainable? Maybe not, but that is absolutely the goal. And you see a list of the contaminants here. We're talking about syringes and sharps, some of that medical waste stuff. You see that the medical waste is collected in red bags. And so those types of things. Human or animal waste, batteries, light bulbs, anything containing mercury, weapons, sharp tools, explosives, non-empty pressurized gas cylinders, or other aerosols that are labeled as dangerous. So we absolutely want to do what we can. And so part of the contamination reduction plan or program should be to get us to 0 higher risk contaminants. And that's the goal that the state has set for that category of contaminants. The other goal, there's 2 goals, is when we're looking at non-high risk materials or non-high risk contaminants, that we're reaching a goal of 10% overall contamination. So I believe that this is, attainable and is a goal of 0 or no contaminants is unrealistic. If we were to truly try to get to 0 contaminants, that would probably be unaffordable to our public to try to do that. Currently, the state has estimated that we have about a 15.5% contamination. So looking at reducing that by about 5.5% down to 10%. Believe that this is achievable and a realistic goal. Again, that balances cost and feasibility. And because this may take some time, they have set some intermediate goals of 12.5% contamination by 2030. So in the next essentially 4 years, with a 10% contamination level by 2033. So in order to meet then the cities or local governments obligation under this, there's 2 parts here. One is staff is recommending that the city adopt a recycling contamination goal that is consistent with DEQ's, and that we do that by amending Council Policy C25, solid waste management, to reflect those adopted goals. So the recommendation that staff is asking today is to forward and recommend that City Council amend City Council Policy C25, solid waste management, and adopt recycling contamination goals consistent with statewide goals established by DEQ. In your agenda packet, if you go to, I believe it's agenda packet page 13 and 14, you'll see there's a draft copy of our solid waste policy, and there's a gray highlighted section. There's no other edits, it's simply adding in this section,
Great.
the gray part, to our policy, which would be stating a recycling contamination goal. It's adopting verbatim those two goals. Goal number 1, 0 high-risk contaminants, and goal number 2, a 10% overall contamination. So at this point, I will open up, I guess, the floor for
Questions?
discussion and any thoughts on that, and then I'd be looking for a motion.
Dr. Brown, do you have a question? Counselor Gwynn, do you have any questions?
I guess I think I do. So if we initiate this policy, how is it enforced? Is it enforced? And if so, by whom?
That's a great question. So this is not something that's necessarily enforced per se, but it's a goal that we are, it's an aspirational goal that we're seeking to attain. Right now, so we at a city level don't know what our particular contamination is. I'll start with that. So we can look at it from I think we have county-wide numbers on that from a while back, and I apologize, I don't have that off the top of my head. But the measurement of that contamination would be performed, and the responsibility of measuring contamination is CAA. So the pro, they have the obligation of performing that, and so our job is to implement the contamination reduction elements as laid out by DEQ, those approved elements. And so what we may be seeing is we submit a plan of how we intend to reduce contamination. That plan that we approved, and we get funding from CAA to perform that. As that measurement, or as CAA then is measuring the contamination, we may adjust that plan moving forward as we see the success or non-success of those elements. So if we don't meet that goal, there's no punishment, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, yes, I think it does.
Mr. Zink, Madam Chair, may I ask a question to
Yes,
follow
you
up
may.
with? Thank
Yes.
you. Give me a moment. I need to switch screens real quick, Mr. Zink, because I do have a question for you. And it's in regards to on the packet page 7. So page 7, you mentioned that you said, although contamination comes with challenges and increases the cost of recycling program operations. So I'll stop right there. So when it comes to lowering the contamination rate, the cost of recycling program operations goes up. Does that cost of the recycling operations go up year by year all the way until we get to 2033? Or are we only going to increase the prices of things, every 2 or 3 years? Like how does it really play out?
If I could just make sure, I want to clarify. So are you talking about the cost of performing the contamination reduction elements as it relates to trying? So the cost of those, that education and outreach and those contamination elements, that's paid for by CAA, and that's part of the $3 per capita that we are allotted to perform that activity. So that's not something that our residents are paying for directly.
Okay. Thank you for that. So if they're not paying for it directly, I think Councilor Gwynn just asked this question. How do we, but you know what? I'll pause and I'll let you continue on. I'll pause.
I think I think he's trying to shape his question with more information.
Yeah, I'll wait.
So I don't have anything else to present on this particular item. So if there's a question related to contamination reduction, I think now would be the time.
Well, it goes back to Councilor Nguyen. Maybe you can share with me again, like how do we enforce that? Like how do we do that? Like whose responsibility is it?
So it's local government's responsibility to implement the program elements within the funding that's available. So if there's funding available, and right now that funding is provided by CAA up to $3 per capita.
Got it.
It's our responsibility to perform the reduction or the contamination reduction elements as approved by DEQ. If it's determined that those program elements are unsuccessful, we can submit other options, maybe outside of the kind of approved list of elements. Or DEQ may say, hey, you know what? Here's new elements that we approve for use of these funds, and we may go that direction. So, but if we are successful, then we may continue down that path or start adding other. So if, for instance, we get really good at reducing contamination for residential customers, the next year or 2 years later, we may shift towards, hey, now we're going to start really focusing on commercial customers. And after that, something else. So there's a wide range of areas that we can work to reduce the contamination. And so I think the intent would be, you know, who are the worst offenders first, and we're going to start there and then continue on. But if we're unsuccessful, if the numbers, the assessment, the contamination assessment shows that we're not being successful with the elements that we're using, we may need to mix it up and try something else. Maybe take some surveys or, put our thinking caps on and try something else.
Okay. And the only thing I'll say, and this is not a question, but I'm reading the statement again from that same page. You say that an overall goal of zero contamination for non-high-risk materials is unrealistic. And so we are trying to lower things. You know, you have a certain scale from 12.5% by 2030 and 10% by 2033. But although those are set goals, we just know, according to you, we just know there's going to be, it's unrealistic to get to zero.
Correct. I mean, if we get less than 10%, great. That certainly would be wonderful. And that those goals and this, I believe the state may change and has the ability to change their goals in the future. And so we might adjust ours as well. If looks like we're doing, we're beating those goals, we can move the finish line, I guess, if you will, or change the bar. But certainly if we were trying to attain a 0%, I think the cost of trying to do that would be more burdensome than we're willing to. So the cost would go back to CAA, and I think that cost eventually does come back to consumers, not our customers locally directly, but through the increased cost of products is ultimately where that funding is coming from. So, but to the overall system, I think that the cost of getting to zero contamination is unrealistic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I do have a couple questions, Brian. So we're humans, we make mistakes.
Yeah.
So again, getting something to zero is really unrealistic. And as we already know, people may not be as aware of what goes in what bin, or if the one bin is full, they just put it in the other one because that's another bin that's going to get taken away. I'm trying to understand, I guess, first off, I'm trying to understand Who has already provided that statewide we're at about 15.5%? Like who's been gauging that? And how will it be gauged? And it's really hard for me to understand that, you know, maybe one rural community who hasn't had as much education on what can be done might be jeopardizing their recycling, and then another community is doing quite well. You know, like how is that all going to get blenderized when we're trying to do a state goal? And that's a really big question in my mind, is how we're going to do that. So I'm kind of trying to understand is how did the state calculate that? How did they get, you know, who provided that information? And then what might the punitive measures be if people don't adjust their behavior? And who's going to make that determination? Is it going to be the truck that's coming by with the camera? You know, like it's just like, wow, this is going to be really difficult to implement. Now, I don't have any problem with accepting this policy, but what I'm really struggling with is how is this going to work? And how will we be able to accurately gauge if we're improving? So those are my questions. And the honest truth is, as I just told you earlier before the meeting, I am promoting this newer recycling program to my neighborhood associations. And inevitably, one of the questions which when I explained that, you know, you get to put tinfoil in your blue bin now, but don't have lots of food in that tinfoil. Don't wad it up because you just cook something in it, but you can put tinfoil in. You know, so it's this without even sort of knowing that you're contaminating the material. You know, like how they want to know how can people get away with that? You know, it's kind of like, well, no one will know unless they opened up the tinfoil and took a look at it. You know, so there's so many questions I have with how is it going to be judged? How can we help people recognize the best behavior so that we can get there? And so again, I'm great with the policy, but I just don't know how we're going to be measuring it.
So I'll start with
Good luck.
There's a couple different questions there, so I'll do my best. The 15.5%, I don't know specifically where that number comes from. I imagine though that is a consolidation of a lot of data, because DEQ does require annual reporting from all permitted facilities within the state. And so I believe that's a consolidation of that data.
Okay.
Probably from 2022 or 2023. So they're always a couple years behind on that. So this is reflective of, it should be reflective as close as possible with the current situation as best as the data is available. How we then encourage people, you know, so what are we going to do to make that number lower, and how do we educate folks? So that's kind of the step 2 that we haven't talked about, and we won't be talking about it with this group today, but we'll be seeing more of that information coming up in the coming months. But very briefly, there's generally 3 elements, if you will, to those approved to the approved plan. And so that starts with the customer facing, what they call customer facing materials and methods. So how do we get information out to, and how do we measure or witness whether or not folks are compliant with reducing contaminants? So how do we get information out? And that's that side of it. So that's kind of one element. And with each of these, there's a single family, commercial, and multifamily focus. And at a local government level, we're asked to pick one of those at a minimum, either single family, commercial, or multifamily, and then run that through all 3 levels, if you will, or elements of the overall plan. So the first one is customer facing methods. How do we get that information out? The second section, or LMB, if you will, is providing feedback to the generators, to those that are producing the recycling. So is this you want to go high tech, historically, we've had cart hangers or door hangers or cart tags. So a driver may see with his camera, oh, hey, there was a plastic bag or styrofoam or something went in there. So he would pull out a tag, he'd write on there, this is what I saw, or check the box, whatever, and go hang it on the cart. That's one method of feedback. There's some more high-tech ways of doing it now where there's camera, and I don't know how successful it is, but using some AI with a camera. And then if you have all the technology, the administrative staff to back it up, that goes into a database, and then it sends that customer a postcard saying, hey, this is what we found, or sends them an email and says, hey, this is what we found in your cart. Do better. Something to that effect.
But currently, there's no punitive right now. They're not charging if they're doing something wrong, but if it accumulates, they might, or.
So right now, council has authorized the haulers to charge a contamination fee. That's been, well, let's say they have, for the most part, they haven't charged that in recent years. They are authorized, but hasn't been really successful in changing behavior.
Okay.
However, so then the third level of that outreach is developing standards for service or financial consequences. So you inform people, you then notify them as the first step. You then notify them when they're not following the methods that we've informed them about. Then the third level is once we've informed them and notified them several times that they aren't complying, then they can either have their service removed. In other words, they only get trash cans, they don't get recycle cans.
Okay.
Or there could be financial consequences, which would be a contamination fee. And so that is for still to be determined, and that's for us to determine as a body and possibly with our other solid waste partners. As an example, at the Materials Management Advisory Council, when we're looking at things from a regional perspective, how do we want to, which elements of these approved plans do we want to implement here locally? And so that's yet to be determined, but DEQ has provided a roadmap of how to move forward and how to implement the actual reduction program elements.
Okay. I'm going to expand. I'm going
Please.
to ask another question. Brian might need to be the one that answers this. I again recently was asked that the hazardous waste collection site had been closed for some time and reopened recently. And the gentleman that was asking me, he says, I brought, and I believe it was old gasoline. And he brought it in a container, and he was told that he can't put it into the container they once had. Or I guess they used to be able to collect it. And he said that I would have to give up my container, which was quite expensive. And he was frustrated by that. So you can answer that question more later, but what I'm trying to move forward on is, so we have contamination going into the recycling containers. Might there be any thoughts in the future of trying to have other containers that would have hazardous stuff in it that could be recycled, and they don't have to take it somewhere, so that they don't put it in the blue container? I'm just wondering if there's opportunities for other mechanisms to help control what some people might be putting in there that they don't know about.
Yeah, so if I could
Yes,
speak
please.
to some of those. So right now, if we're looking at those high-risk contaminants, there are already several methods of, or there are methods of collecting several of these. So for instance, the syringes, sharps, the medical waste. So there's a method of collecting that both at a commercial level and residential level. Batteries and products with embedded batteries. We have household battery collection. Human animal waste, well, we don't do that, but I think it's clear that should be the animal
In the
waste
trash.
should go in the trash, right? So there's a method of collecting that or disposing of that.
Putting it in the
Yeah.
right bin.
The fluorescent bulbs, mercury thermometer, that sort of thing. From a curbside level, we don't have that. However, that is available through, there are resources within the community for collecting those so that they don't need to be disposed of. The weapons and sharp tools, I don't know the specifics, but I'm sure that there are methods out there. We can, and I think making those resources known
Known, maybe.
and available.
And more, I guess, with some more efficiency, I just think about people that may not have, one, the knowledge, and then number two, the ability
Right.
to
Right.
transport it, and that's always a problem.
Yep.
So, I see Ninten would like to respond, I guess, to my question or offer a.
No, I was just saying, this seems very similar to how the water regulations evolved. Especially when you think about fecal coliform and not being, not something that E. coli you don't want in the waterways. So the stormwater requirements basically just ask you guys to adopt certain local regulations which stop you from doing that. The outcome of that was BMP-based management practices for, say, pet waste collection, which basically required people not put those. There is no actual regulatory responsibility other than the BMP-based approaches, education and outreach. And the gauging of that is again by the same way as to how you see the response of how much of it's not ending up in the streams when we take samples and see less E. coli.
Okay,
So I think this is almost going the same route.
Great.
So it's not going to immediately have eventually we have the enforcement option. The stake is always there to finally say like you're repeating this action again and again. As a community, we have a requirement to not allow certain things to end up in the waterways. Same way you could eventually go there, but I don't think even DEQ is going there.
okay,
Solid waste.
great, thank you. Anything? Kind of, no.
Well, I guess back on the HHW question, as far as the container, like for gasoline. So we've never accepted gasoline except for in a container. Used oil is allowed to be recycled. There's a receptacle for that, but anything that goes to HHW comes in a container and is actually kept in that container.
Okay,
And is carried all the way through the ultimate disposal. So
Okay.
that's where it's a little difficult. We usually ask somebody to grab a milk container, some other jug, and pour whatever that is
Okay.
into that.
I'll go back to that.
Yeah. And then as far as a reuse component, we did try to do a reuse component with HHW materials, with household hazardous waste. And we had a drop location for people to drop partially used containers or whatever and others to take. And what we found is we made people register, is that there were like 2 people that kept taking everything. And our fear was we were gonna have this giant cleanup site
Yes,
at a residence in the county, so
Got
we
it.
discontinued.
all right, thank you. Okay, Mickey, you came in a bit late. What we've been talking about is the policy, and we do need to make a motion on having the policy. If you have any questions, Dr. Brown doesn't have his hand up, and Counselor Gwynn, if you have any questions, just go ahead and let us know because I can't see you, so you could just,
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
thank you.
I don't have any. I didn't when I read through it and, yeah.
So then, I'll go ahead and make the motion. If there aren't any more questions, I move to forward and recommend that the city council amend city council policy C-25 solid waste management and adopt recycling contamination goals consistent with the statewide goals established by DEQ.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we've already had much discussion, but I'll ask again if there's any discussion or any questions. So then I would guess we're ready to vote. So, so go ahead, everybody say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, motion passes. A lot of tough questions.
Yeah, a lot of tough issues. I will stop sharing just momentarily. So you don't all have to look at that for the next 2 minutes. Go into management, if I may.
Yes,
Move on
please.
to
Yes, go right ahead on to
management
management
update,
updates.
information items. In the agenda, I have no NA for not applicable on upcoming events. I will, however, let you know, I will be presenting very briefly next Tuesday's Can Do Neighborhood Association.
See you there. Right, they
I'll
asked
see you then. Just talking a bit about, again, Recycling Modernization Act, changes in recycling. At the end of the table here are, thank you, the newly printed and paid for by CAA
Okay.
flyers.
Oh, I'm saying.
So
I know.
we were able to actually, through the normal channels, we didn't have to get reimbursement, but so our haulers, working with our haulers, they put in the order. And this is, I got a box on my desk, which is starting to shrink. So it's getting out. So Irma has some, she's taking some out to neighborhood associations. Also sent some over to Public Works with their wastewater, or streams, Clean Streams group, and some of the outreach that they're doing. And so we're getting that information out. And it looks like Dr. Brown has a question.
Yes, Dr. Brown.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Zink, I think you already said this, or you have a plan for it. Like, how do we best help you to educate the community? Because I think you just said you're going to neighborhood associations, you've connected with Manager Coleman. So what do we need to do to educate the community about this?
So I'm happy to provide information. I'm happy to be, teach the teacher if you want to take on that role. Or if there are neighborhood associations that you would like me to come out to, and I'm available, I'm happy to do that as well. So I think I'm starting to get pretty good at it. I'm going to start shortening my presentation to avoiding some of the, hey, how we got here, and I don't think people really care about that as much. Just more of the what do I need to know now? And so that's what I'm happy to present.
And what I'm finding, I was
go
just
ahead,
going to
Counselor.
say, what I'm finding out when I present this is, what are you going to do with the people that do things wrong?
Well, and I think we had this conversation earlier in the year. Obviously, some folks recycle and some don't. And I think a lot of it, at least in the Northeast Salem component, when I think about, just the level of poverty in Ward 5, and I'm not making the correlation that just because you have folks that live in poverty, that they are the folks that are not recycling, because I'm pretty sure there'll be some data that would say even folks that come from a place of means or affluence, they may not be the best recyclers either. My only ask or concern would be, with folks who have 2 or 3 or multiple jobs, and obviously they're inundated with other, life things that are happening every day. It's like, how do we educate them, in a very, friendly manner, just so we can just kind of raise the level of concern, but also be able to engage as many of our constituents as we can when it comes to just, hey, this is all of us in this together. And so I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can lean into this, because obviously Northeast Salem, there's a lot happening. And as I look through things, my concern is we have so much trash just kind of throughout the ward. And so I think I'm stuck between everything that I see versus how do we educate folks on just being better recyclers. I think there's some tension there, and I'm not exactly sure how to resolve all that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Counselor. One thing you may have seen a City of Salem post actually 1 week ago today with that exact flyer. We put that out on Facebook. Last check, there were 95, 96 comments. with some questions, and we're following up with those questions.
Great.
Maybe actually adding an FAQ, putting together that at some point, because there are quite a few of those questions. But what Dr. Brown, one thing, I might ask is, if you have a couple of these flyers and you take them with you, you don't necessarily, you can hand them out, but on every single one of them has the QRF code. And folks can, scan that without having to take anything with them, but scan that and have direct access to that information. And then it's easily shareable from there as well. So happy to provide any of that information that would be helpful as you're making your routes.
I think too that an opportunity may be to go into schools that there could be some recycling education with you go into your neighborhood schools and talk about it, or see if a school might be interested in working on a project where they go and pick up trash and then learn how to what things can be recycled and what things can't. There's a lot of opportunities, but again, it's determining what would work and then getting people to participate in doing it.
Right. And Madam Chair, I love that idea. And I would also add or suggest, the fire department, they have already had 2 open houses on these past 2 Saturdays, and they have one this Saturday and next Saturday. That may be a good place just to take the material, because at those open houses, you have a lot of families, you have a lot of kids. And so that's just another avenue that we could use, because their foundation is also there. And so there's quite a few adults there. There's several tables. So there may be an opportunity to share that information at our 2 remaining open houses with the fire department.
We also have Public Works Day, don't we? We could maybe do something at Public Works Day, and
It didn't happen last year, but I'm sure it will.
and then the county might do something that, encouraging. Good ideas, thank you.
We do go into schools. We do go into schools with Public Works. Whole bunch of them. We provide a whole bunch of education, and even the clean schemes. It's all Public Works. So there is avenues to combine the resources to have, multiple things happen at the same time.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So great ideas.
So speaking of schools, our Haulers Association, the Valley Haulers, they do have so Kennedy is our outreach coordinator, and she, I don't know if it has yet, but well, 2 things. One, they do schedule tours of the facility, and so she is heading that up, and so have a lot of school children coming through, checking out the resource recovery side of things, seeing all the machinery and all the sorting, but then also providing that information back of what is recyclable, getting that information in the homes that way. But I believe, I don't know if, and Shane, I don't know if you can confirm, but I think she is going out into some of the elementary schools to provide that information as well.
Yeah, so I'm president of the Mid-Valley Haulers Group, but yeah, so Kennedy is a full-time position. All the haulers are obligated to do education for recycling. So part of our obligation, we have this position where Kennedy goes out, and we have had some struggles getting traction with the Salem Kaiser School District. So I don't know if there's some way maybe this group could help us kind of gain some effect in there, but we would love to have her out even more than she already is. And we are currently going through a project in our facility, kind of putting together a more user-friendly, we call it an education room center, but there's going to be a lot more developments there that we would love to share with you at some point. But yeah, we definitely want to get into more schools.
So a lot of things that are happening, but certainly, a lot of opportunity and things we can do more.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay,
What's that?
all right, great. Any other questions? Are we gonna continue on?
Yes, continue on B. The next thing, just very briefly, the Marion County Materials Management Advisory Council. We didn't have a meeting in September. Next one is scheduled for October 29th. I believe we'll be during that, be starting that conversation about how as a region, Marion County and the cities within it, will we be implementing those contamination reduction elements? So that we'll be starting that conversation, as I understand it, on that day. So I'm gonna come from that perspective. I'm gonna share my screen as we move on to C, opportunity to recycle annual reporting obligations. Speaking of obligations.
Before Ryan gets started, Councilor Gwynn, I know that you need to leave our meeting early. You are welcome to just let us know that you're leaving whenever it's necessary.
Sounds good. Thank you. I will stay on probably for another 10 minutes or so.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
So as Shane mentioned, there's obligations that the haulers have to help with outreach and education, contamination reduction and such. Haven't talked about it much in this body yet, but every year by its calendar year, the city in cooperation with the county submits our opportunity to recycle report. It's a report to DEQ. It's part of our legislated obligations that reports on what did we do during the year to meet certain recycling and recovery and contamination reduction programs. So an RMA is adding to that as we move forward. One of the elements of here, so I'm going to dive a little bit deep into just one particular area here.
Right.
One of those elements that we have checked the box on in the past for a number of years is called element G, which is an expanded recycling drop-off depots. Previously, that obligation or that requirement has been met more on a regional or waste shed level. And so we have, in partnership with the county, listed about, I think, 8 or 9 different places throughout the county that met that requirement. With RMA, the obligation is being shifted away from a waste shed area to a local government, so city by city obligation. And so we are, in order to meet that requirement, we're required to have 1 recycling depot for every 25,000 population. Which means the city of Salem would need to have 7 recycling depots that are accessed. I would say within the city of Salem, but one of them that we're getting credit for isn't in the city of Salem, but serves the city, which is Suburban. And so right now we have 4 that meet that requirement. So if you look up on the screen, the map there, the 4 orange or kind of burnt orange colored marks that you see on the map. So at the top of the map, you have Pacific Sanitation. This is their office there. In West Salem, we have Valley Recycling, DNO in South Salem. And then in that Fruitland or kind of Four Corners area on East Salem, we have Suburban. And so those are 4 of our haulers that have, or each of those 4 haulers have depots at their home office that help us to meet that requirement. Previously, if you let's see the 2 kind of green or olive colored ones there, the Republic Services Salem Recycling Center, which was formerly Garden, there was a recycling or a depot there. So right now there isn't an operational depot, but that's being worked through. But even if there was a depot there, that would not qualify towards our requirement. That meets a separate requirement for permitted facilities. Also, the depot out at the Salem Kaiser Transfer Station, which is the olive green marker you see out there on Highway 22, met one of those, was one of those that met a requirement previously. That, however, is meeting a separate requirement, which is having one depot within our jurisdiction that accepts appliances, also known as white goods, and oil. So because they meet that requirement, we're not able to count it towards our 7
Oh,
within the city.
hmm.
So if we're gonna check that box in the future, we need 3 more locations. If you look at the map, the 4 that count are all kind of on the outer edges. It would be great because the requirement is to have 7 conveniently located depots for every 25,000, or 1 conveniently located, so we would need 7 conveniently located depots within the city. And we don't have any in the central core. My hope is that in the coming 12 months or so, or in the future, that we can develop and find some locations, whether it be city-owned property or partners of the city that would be willing to house or site a depot. Now, what is a depot? The minimum requirement is 1 container that accepts commingled recycling material. So that would be, it could be multiple carts, but basically a container, something that would, anything that goes in the blue commingled curbside cart, a container that would collect that material. Might be staffed or unstaffed, but there needs to be signage and that type of thing there. My goal is to, in the near future, to be reaching out and finding partners who would be able to help us with that. In the meantime, because we still have minimum requirements to meet for our opportunity to recycle obligations, we have, let me just move over to the next slide. We can submit for an alternate recycling program in lieu of that program element G. So I don't need necessarily approval from this board, but I wanted to let you know what staff's intent is moving forward.
Okay.
So there's another element B. There's A through, I think, F or F, G, anyway. There's not quite that many, but there's a bunch of element B. If we were to check that box, as stated, is basically a weekly same day as garbage residential collection. So it's weekly recycling. However, the minimum capacity of the recycling bin to meet that requirement is 12 gallons. So every week, 12 gallons. Currently, our current every other week recycling option is 95 gallons every other week. That's equivalent to 47.5 gallons weekly, which is almost 4 times the minimum standard to meet that, to check the box, if you will, or to meet that other standard for a requirement for element B. When it was discovered in talking with the coordinator at DEQ that we would not meet that element G for the depots, one of the suggestions that she came back to us, because she's great, she'll bring a problem, but she also brings multiple solutions. Kathy Rhodes, she goes by Kat at DEQ, is really great that way. She's one of the regional coordinators. So one of the options that she presented is and what's called an alternate recycling program. It's not one of the approved things on the list, but if we can show that we are meeting one of the obligations or providing a service that meets or is better than that, we can write that up. And there are other jurisdictions, other cities within the state that have used this exact same program. She gave me the language, she gave me the application, shows exactly how to fill it out. So my intent is to use that. We'll apply, submit that as part of our opportunity to recycle report here in January, February of next year to meet the requirements that we need. But to use that as a temporary measure until we can either have sufficient qualifying depots, so we have at least 7 depots within the city, or we pick one of the other elements, as there are some others that we could also pick from, but we meet another qualifying element. what I want to do though is through all this, I hope is clear, is not just check the box. I don't want to just find something that's, oh, hey, we're barely squeaking through by checking the box and kind of. The whole intent of this is to provide convenient recycling options and education and outreach to our residents. So it's not just to check the box, but to actually provide meaningful recycling options and outreach. And so with that, again, my intent is to use this as a temporary measure until we can provide more meaningful options.
So by doing this, by utilizing the recycling that's collected,
Mhm.
would that sort of just be enough to do until we have temporary? I mean, is it just like one item that temporarily can
Right.
resolve it, but that in the meantime, we would need to still add? It's
Yeah.
not like it
It-
replaces three of the.
This would, even in perpetuity, would keep us in compliance.
Okay.
Even the next year, the
Okay.
next year, the
So
next year.
it would keep us in
We
compliance.
could do this and not add more depots or do
Okay.
anything else. But I think personally, I think that's a little disingenuous
And I
to say,
think,
oh, hey, we're finding this workaround, but doesn't actually provide more service to our
Correct.
residents.
and I think that that's a really good point, and I think it's also the point all of us are making with increased education, increased opportunities of people to bring things, because it's not always easy to get maybe the mass stuff that you have out to the transfer center or whatever. So if it's closer, it would seem more likely that people would participate.
Right. And you know, as you see on the map, everything that's currently available, those 4 depots on the outer edges of the city. We don't have anything in the core, so that's really what I would like to, see if there's a way that we can make something, again, conveniently located for more residents, since we do have a higher density and population in the center.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm really glad we've got it on the outside.
Yeah. But this could, this could help with our contamination and other things. So again, if there are
Yes,
more
Conveniently
options,
located.
more convenient options will help with higher recovery, lower contamination, all of that.
Sure, makes sense.
do you have a question?
Well, not really, I guess more of a comment. I mean, I kind of like the idea that we don't have 7 right now with the changes that are being implemented, because I think it's important to have the education program start so folks
Yeah.
get to know what they can put in that mixed recycling container as we add depots, or before we add even more depots, just so that information is there to reduce the contamination in those collection areas.
Yep.
Dr. Brown, do you have any questions or comments? I think I like your idea. I think Dr. Brown, give me a thumbs up if you're okay with him going forward with this as a temporary solution while we find others. Okay, so
Yep.
you've got your direction.
All right,
Thank you.
we will move forward with that. Next item.
I have one question.
Yes,
Do these new depot bins require people to be there?
no,
But they would require people to manage, to make sure that, again, people aren't making mistakes, or that there would be people come and clean up the messes that might get made.
yeah, and I think that's gonna be the challenge, right? So like right now, the 4 depots that we have are again at our haulers' offices.
So they can kind of check on it.
Yeah, because some of them are open 24 hours, some of them are only available to the public during their office hours. And so, but there is some level of oversight, if you will, at those locations. And so if we are partnering with someone, maybe there's some City of Salem properties that we're able to site these on. Or someone who's, we partner with someone who maybe has some, if there's people around.
Yes, yeah.
That might, if nothing else, can just kind of watch or re-educate them and they can, you know, hey, look, there's a sign right here that says what you can put in here, follow the signage. And maybe as someone who's an advocate and just very passionate about
Volunteer opportunity.
wanting to help with this. So I think there's some great opportunities, but yet I don't want to just put a box on the side of the street that anyone can just throw anything in there. And again, creating more contamination issues than we already have.
That's what I
So I
was.
want it to be thoughtful.
What about, oh, I was gonna say, what about the bottle drop sites, for example?
That's a separate company.
No, I know, but for places to cite places, I mean, I realize you may, you know, I don't know what you're really looking for the depots, but I was just thinking that there's kind of a connection.
There's a connection, but oftentimes the one I see don't have hardly any space to do what they're doing already. So be interesting to see if there are some that have the space, and maybe that it would be a good connector. I appreciate that, but the only couple that I go to, it's just like, wow, they're already inundated and a little sticky as it is.
That's a good word for it, Steve.
Well, I think that's a good thought, you know, co-located at somewhere,
Yeah.
you know.
Something that has a similar
Where are
characteristic.
people going already? That may be, you know, again, conveniently located, and convenient can mean different things.
Sure, and I think they have cameras already, et cetera. I mean, where you drop off your free bag, for example.
Maybe they do. I don't look for cameras because I don't want my face on a camera.
Well, I'm assuming a lot of folks have cameras anymore, so anyway.
I'm curious for the haulers is having, do those sites have to be managed quite a bit? Or are people pretty good?
Well, there's definitely a lot of struggle with contamination. We definitely have cameras on it. We've had to do some education with some folks, just using it as a garbage source, because we are open 24 hours, ours is.
Yes.
And so if you watch the video over the weekend, it's pretty amazing how many people come, but also, what they're trying to throw in, like furniture and sometimes straight up garbage. So we do have to manage it quite a bit.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Brown, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
No worries. And Mr. Zink, I think this is where my concern is probably similar to Councilor Varney's. And I don't think that map that you shared with us, that's not in our packet, correct?
It's not in the agenda packet, but it's in the slide deck that I sent out earlier today.
Okay, can you mind putting it back on the screen so I can take a look at that? And I think one of the things you said, there are going to be 7 of these depots, correct?
Yes.
And it looks like currently there's going to be, 2 in the northeast side of Salem?
Yes, so the 4 orangish colored ones, so one way north Salem, northeast Salem, one kind of at Four Corners, Fruitland area.
Yeah.
One south Salem.
These are already there. These are already there.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think someone said this already. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of, re-education. I think my concern is, and again, I haven't traveled to all 7 of these, so I don't know. So I would like to go and just put my eyes on where they're at. And having said that, but in the packet, were there addresses for all these sites or just these bubbles?
I can provide addresses if you want. And it's at the haulers offices. So if you look at Pacific Sanitation, you can, or any of them, but I'd be happy to send you the addresses if you like.
Yes, I would love to go and visit. And I think I said this probably at our council meeting before, but just I'll say it for the folks that are here in this space. I drive through Ward 5 every single day, daytime and also at night, just to see how things look at night. And I think there will be an opportunity to re-educate the community, because I think my concern is, I'm not exactly sure how many folks are going to use them, and obviously I can't, quantify that at all. I like the idea of having these depots. I just need to go and visit to see how well they're being used right now, because I really don't know. And I'm only thinking of Ward 5, because I know currently right now we have trash all up and down, Portland Road. I think I said this the other day with an abandoned car that's been sitting there for like 3 weeks. And so my concern is, will people use these depots just to bring other things? And I don't know that. So that's why I want to go and visit the 2 that are in Northeast Salem just to see what they look like.
Absolutely. I'll get those addresses sent out to you.
Thank you.
These are just for recycling. There isn't any trash bins.
Correct. Okay, unless there's anything else, I'm gonna move on to item D.
Okay, alert, alert.
So as I mentioned, we have received, we meaning city staff received the initial draft for the Polk County IGA for regarding transportation that's currently proposed to be cited in RICREAL. It's still a working draft at this point. Full disclosure, I owe Polk County my comments. We've had some discussions. Josh and I got on a call along with legal counsel on the call with Polk and their legal counsel almost a week ago, just kind of talking through some different questions and that. But I wanted to just walk through very briefly kind of some of the major components of that agreement. I don't have the draft for your review today, but that will be coming to the plans to bring that to this body in the future before going to council. So again, I'd be looking for at some point in the future a recommendation from the Solid Waste Committee to council.
Okay.
And just want to point out the public testimony that was received yesterday. The public testimony is regarding this topic, just to kind of put it all together. But those major components, kind of starting off with our definitions, but the definition of solid waste does include garbage, commingled recycling, and mixed organics. Just for comparison, the flow control that is legislated in Marion County is only for garbage. It does not include what's called source separated materials. So that would include the commingled recycling and the mixed organics. That's garbage only. The reason for including all 3 of these in Polk County is that that additional tonnage is necessary to make the site there viable. The numbers just don't work without all 3 of those going through there.
Calculated.
And we can talk more about some of the benefits and reasons for that. But you just want to kind of walk through those major elements.
Mm-hmm.
Item number 2 here, this is kind of the meat of it, but this agreement would grant Polk County authority to require those who generate, collect, or transport solid waste in West Salem. This is where our agreement would be to make use of the disposal, transfer, or material or energy recovery sites or facilities of Polk County. That definition, again, this is a working draft. I pulled much of that language from the legislated flow control language that we use in Marion County. So we're trying to mirror that as much as possible. It does, item number 3, the city does maintain its authority to grant and regulate our own solid waste franchises. The 4th one, this agreement is contingent on Polk County granting a franchise to the operator of the transfer facility and the facility being constructed. So as we move forward, if we approve and execute this agreement, which will likely need to happen before that facility is built and constructed and all that. If those things don't occur, then we're not on the, we're back to our
Status quo.
how we're operating right now. So there's no obligation of our haulers to take waste somewhere that doesn't exist. If that makes sense. Or for the city to direct them to do that. This next item here is that once we do execute the agreement, it's our intent and our obligation as a city to make any changes. I don't know at this point that we would need to, but if there are any changes that we need to make to code or to our franchise agreements to kind of clean everything up, that would then direct our haulers to transport the waste to that county facility. So we'll have 12 months or so per the agreement to kind of get any administrative work we need to do with the background.
So it's not like we have to do it in 2 months or 3.
Right.
Okay.
One thing that wasn't initially part of the agreement, but city staff is asking for is reporting and notice expectations regarding, as that site with part of the franchise agreement with Polk County, as they are going through their annual rate setting of, how much is it going to cost for our haulers to take waste to that site. They're developing what that looks like, what that administrative process looks like through that franchise agreement. And so, but while each individual city or the city of Salem may not have direct involvement in that process, we want to know about it and participate as much as we can. There may be an element of where, while we may not have a deciding factor or a vote at the table, if you will, there's information that we may be providing through that process, and participating in whatever ways that we can. And so, it's more of a placeholder for that language, and we're working through what that might look like. But how we're involved in that without having necessarily, we don't have a member or no one from the city is on the board of commissioners for Polk County that would be necessarily making that decision. But we want to be involved as much as we can in that process. Maybe asking for things that may help with the timing of, when they're making decisions versus our own COSA process that helps with to align that with what we're doing here to make to streamline our process as well. Again, there's some things that are up in the air, but there's some general concepts that we're working through. And right now, the term of this, as is in the draft, the working draft, would be initially a 10-year term with additional 5-year extensions, assuming there's no cause or default. Just briefly, the next steps, again, returning to Polk County with some of our proposed edits, collaborating with the other cities in Polk County and Polk County, of course, on a workable agreement. I think the hope or the intent would be that all of us cities in Polk County would have the same or very similar agreements. One, it reduces the administration for Polk County. We want to be good partners, right? Not have something that's completely strange or different than the others. Just helps the administration of those agreements countywide. Will be, but if there's something that's important to the city of Salem, I think, we want to make sure that that's in there. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I think it'd be nice to have similar agreements across the board.
Would certainly make it more efficient.
Sure, absolutely. If there are major developments or things to share, definitely we'll be bringing that back to this board. But certainly one of the next official things would be bringing that final draft to the solid waste committee, and then looking for recommendation to city council. Again, I don't have a date on this, but I would imagine sometime in the next 6 months, if not sooner. So, but we're within that 6-month period is what I'm imagining. And then taking it to city council for consideration and approval. And then at that point, we would have that 12 months to amend or adjust any of our city code or franchise agreements. My hope today is, and maybe part of the discussion is, are there elements that either you don't see here that you feel would be important, whether it be from a policy perspective, that maybe it's just an unanswered question that turns into a question, into a policy of, that would be important for a city of Salem or for West Salem in particular, as it relates to our relationship with Polk County on this site.
I mean, yes.
I'm looking right at you and ready to have you start.
I'm glad you mentioned the alignment with our current solid waste policy. I think that's really critical, following, because you all worked really, really hard on getting that policy all put together and everything, and it's a very good policy. One of my questions is, what mechanism is there for feedback from the haulers on this? Are they providing input? Is there a way to get more of their input? I want to make sure that they're at the table discussing this as well, because it definitely impacts all of them. A concern is monitoring of contaminants of land, air, and water from the facility. I don't know what that facility is planning, but I think that's a requirement.
Isn't it DEQ involved, I think?
Probably, but just to make sure.
Yep.
And it's my understanding, it said city to direct haulers transport solid waste to county facility. Would that be all of it instead of going to Coffin Butte from West Salem?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to talk more about that?
I would.
Or you have
A little
or you have
bit, yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I saw that statement and I thought, okay, that's pretty restrictive, whatever. Sure. Tell me more. How's that?
So there's a couple of different things. One, this is a consolidation, right, of waste that is then reloaded and taken to wherever whatever is the best and most available and least expensive disposal site. So right now, each of the haulers within Polk County, whether it be, I think there's 3 or 4. There's Republic for West Salem, there's Republic Services in Valley, and there's also Brant. Is there another one in West?
There is Recology also.
And Recology, so 3 to 4 haulers. So each of them, so West Salem, our 2 haulers, they curbside collection, and they go all the way down to Coffin Butte. There's no reload facility that helps to shorten that trip.
Right.
So each garbage truck is going all the way down to Coffin Butte and then going back to Rock. This facility would have a shorter drive to, at least where it's currently sited, for most of Polk County. There are some, the southern areas of Polk County that are able to, that would have a shorter trip right now. But generally, you're consolidating into one location, reloading that, and then taking it to currently would be Coffin Butte. Part of what that allows is one facility with larger tons. So basically would allow Polk County to negotiate what that disposal fee would be, rather than each individual hauler needing to do that. Right now, it's kind of really open. So right now we've experienced with our Polk County rates, it's open to whatever Coffin Butte wants to charge. And so right this year, the next year, the year after, we're expecting $10 per year increases on that disposal. I think this would provide some stability to that. Initially, we may see a little bit more just because we are helping to pay for this facility, but moving forward, there's some rate stability there. The next piece of that is that if and when Coffin Butte no longer becomes an option, or rather isn't the most financially, the best option financially, this then becomes a facility that, similar to the MRF resource in Brooks, would allow for a location that all that material can be consolidated to and possibly taken north on either rail or truck or that type of thing up the gorge, where some of our waste in Marion County side is going. So it provides some options that way. It does also provide redundancy to our Marion County side. And so that both those facilities could be backups to each other moving forward. So if there's something happening or maintenance or a fire from batteries in the trash on Marion County, potentially in the future, the Polk County facility could help be a backup or vice versa on a temporary basis. So I think there's a lot of benefits from that perspective. I think there was another question that I'm not answering. I may have gone down some rabbit trails. Apologies.
No, it's, I appreciate just kind of, yeah, setting the scene here
Yeah.
and advantages, like you said, and that makes sense. I don't know, I'd like to hear from someone else as well. What do you think?
So, thank you for those great questions. I was reviewing the testimony
Yes.
and had a couple questions related to the testimony because I don't know, and maybe we heard earlier. There's some concerns that before we do the intergovernment agreement about the site and it's Brenda McCoy states that it's in a floodplain zone and that there was concerns about that. And about the impact of the heavy trucks. And so I wasn't sure if there was any and public and if there's been public outreach to present. So it's more questions about before we move forward, has everything been looked at and reviewed? I guess that's really my question.
And also, before you answer, Mr. Zink, I'm in the same line as Council Barney and Council Nishoka. I read her comments, and so my questions are all about the things that she listed, and so I'm listening, and so I'm here.
Wonderful. So I will like to actually, Councilor Varney, you mentioned a question earlier about monitoring of the facility. Oh, I just realized I did touch on that before, and then I want to like to address some of this. My understanding is that the franchise agreement between Polk County and the operator of this facility, by the way, the applicant for that proposed facility is in the room, so he can answer some, if he would like, or if you would like him to, he can probably answer some of these questions better than I can. So I'm teeing you up here.
I'm here for any type.
Yeah.
So what you go ahead and answer yours, and then why don't you go ahead and step so that we can have,
So
we can see you and hear you.
the franchise agreement between Polk County and the operator of the facility, of this proposed facility, covers all of those issues of monitoring at that site, in terms of air and soil and water and all that kind of stuff. I don't know all the details, but I know that there's elements of compliance from an environmental standpoint on that site. And that would be an element of that site. It also requires to have a DEQ permit. So any waste transfer facility, transfer site, in other words, I was trying to think of essentially any waste site like that requires a permit from DEQ that's going to have all those same similar type of restrictions and requirements. So lots of oversight from an environmental standpoint at that location or at that proposed location.
Thank you.
And they also directly regulate your operations plan. So DEQ would be the one overseeing our operations and our plan and approving our plan, which addresses all that, addresses air, addresses land, environment, ingress egress, we've have. It's been a very public process, and currently what we are currently in right now is a CUP process, conditional use permit process.
Okay.
We have a hearings officer, we've had public hearing on that.
Okay.
And we've also had a massive application that we've turned in with experts at Turnstone Environmental, we have biologists with them, we have TIAs. Studies have been done, and that's with DKS Engineering. We have civil engineers, we have transportation engineers on the project. We have planners on the project, we have land use legal on the project. I think we have about 10 experts on the project right now. It's a very expensive project that we've been working through on the front end, but it's about 2.5 years we've been working on this site and doing the due diligence and walking through all these different pieces of it.
And I know that we've had presentation on it. I think what oftentimes happens, and maybe this is what Brenda experienced, getting the information out to the public to be able to know when a hearing is or when there's opportunities. That is an issue. And so then someone will hear about it after some of those things have happened and they're wondering, well, has all the due process happened? So my guess is that's what has occurred. And it might be that that Brenda could be contacted and made sure that she understands that and then potentially could be shared with others, just so that everyone feels comfortable and confident that all of the regulations are being met.
I appreciate that. We will reach out.
Thank you. Anybody else with any questions? These, it happens and oftentimes it's great suggestions are made and then we just want to make sure that all of those things have been taking place and that I sincerely appreciate reaching out so that somebody isn't still wondering and questioning. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Anything else that you can see right now? We're not totally finished talking about it. So.
No.
And
No, thank goodness, because I'm really curious about the agreement, for example. Yeah, I'm just absorbing a lot of different things here, concerns about the cost to West Salem residents and how that's gonna work into our cost of service analysis. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts here to kind of predict what the impacts are going to be on West Salem residents, for example, and for the city of Salem.
And we did bring in a rate expert, and then Polk County did hire also a rate expert, who I believe the city of Salem uses for their COSA format.
Okay.
So there has been full-on rate analysis completed.
Okay.
Yep. And that'll be part of, as we're bringing this back, not just the agreement itself, but like I said, what is the impact from a financial aspect to the customers? And so what does that mean? So I believe that there will be, I said initially, possibly a little bit more cost than what customers would see if we stayed with the status quo. But in the long term, one, we have that assurance that we have somewhere to take our trash. And two, I think we're also going to see some stability within those rates moving forward. And this facility helps provide that stability.
And so that brings up a good point that I was going to make with, we need to see some of the impacts, but we also need to see some of the benefits.
Yep.
We need to hear the benefits. And it may be that on that previous map, I don't know if this could be another site of potential drop off.
Unfortunately, we won't get the benefit of that.
Okay, and I think I heard that once before from you.
So it'll be out in Rick Real, I forgot about, but 20 miles. What?
So it's quite a ways out.
Yeah.
Not too much, but that is 7 miles.
Or,
But it'll also be a transfer location.
yeah,
Yeah, and it will have recycling facilities.
It'll have-
We'll have producer take back programs.
they'll have that benefit.
In our.
Environmental.
Immediate,
In
yeah.
our
We'll be able to walk
immediate
to it.
district, but it would have that benefit for
Yeah.
those that are, that might want to go to it or that are further west or,
Yeah, exactly.
so. All right,
So, and this won't be the last time we have an opportunity to talk about this before our agreement come back. So one thing that maybe we can do, once some other things with finalized, maybe we can schedule a time for you to come back and maybe talk about something that may go on deeper in some of the specifics.
Okay.
Would that be helpful?
I
Any
think
qualms?
this would at least, again, a lot of things were pointed out that I think would be nice to hear.
And I can bring in some experts too that can actually directly address any of your guys' concerns on transportation, land use, any of the biology impacts, floodplain issues, anything like that, we can address directly. And it won't come from myself. We can actually have experts talk to you about it. So
I might have you consider that and see if you want to talk to Ryan. I'm
Possibly, I'll get some information. I'm also going to the meeting in Rick Real
tonight, yep.
I will be there, yes, definitely.
You want to push up, yep.
Yeah, the last thing was, 10 years. Committing ourselves initially for 10 years, it's gonna have to be. We're gonna have to feel pretty confident about it, to be able to agree to that right off the bat with a brand new type thing.
I understand. This is infrastructure and it's very similar to sewer and water. And that when you build infrastructure, it's very expensive.
Mhm.
And it requires a certain amount of tonnage to be able to support it. And
Sure.
that's, and you can have shorter terms, but the cost go up. So a lot of times when you try to look at, okay, you have a certain amount of fixed expenses, and fixed cost to build a facility, and you try to spread those out, over a time horizon, that makes most financial sense for the customer base.
Sure.
Which is a concern to us.
It'll be interesting to
Just
see
a
the other
moment.
cities.
So Dr.
agreements.
Brown, we've already gone a couple minutes over time, but we still have at least one more item that we must discuss. I just checked with Brian and we're gonna push out the bulky items so that we don't take up time, but he does want to discuss a little bit about the price increase, but we do have someone that is here visiting and she's raised her hand. So I don't know who you are.
My name's Susan Smith. I live in West Salem and I represent the Salem Environmental Faith Network, which is a group of.
Oh, yes, I've heard about you.
Yes. And the reason why I raised my hand was that I wanted to make sure that you knew that I wanted to make a public comment. I was stewing in the fifth floor, waiting for somebody to come bring me down.
Well, we'll have
And
you
so I
sign in,
did-
but you go right ahead. Go ahead with your comment and sign in.
Yes, okay, I wanted to go ahead and raise a number of things. First of all, please remember the churches as partners. For instance, we represent about 6 or 7 different faith groups in all of the downtown churches. So for instance, I know that on our property, we have some room and it might well be the case that we would be willing to go ahead and become a depot. Or there might be additional churches, say in South Salem, that would be willing to do that are part of our network. So certainly with respect to distribution of information to people, about 50% of the people in Salem actually come
to a faith
congregation, and so we'd be really happy to help you.
Just to let you know, you have 3 minutes, so.
Okay. I want to mention food waste. It sounds like we're going to get green and blue bags and the rest of. That's, I'm late too. That we're gonna get those in West Salem, through the Polk County IGA. Is that, that might
May not happen now.
So all West Salem residents offer both, so your curbside recycling includes garbage, recycling and mixed organic.
Except commercial establishments and apartment houses.
So our apartments are offered, but it's up to the landlord to choose that or not. Commercial has recycling, but generally commercial doesn't need the mixed organics.
Right.
So there's a food waste option for commercial.
Right, if you mow your lawn on a church, you have to get rid of the.
So it sounds like you can order them.
Yes, and you know, one thing that is important to me is that you can't do food waste unless you have a bin. And, you know, all apartments need to have green bins. It needs to not be an option. It needs to be required.
And so we are working on that, but there's a lot of contamination. So I'm talking while you're talking. So
Right, that's okay. As far as contamination, one thing that isn't happening, at least at apartments now, is we don't have any bins that pick up the high-risk contaminants, right? We expect people to go to a depot with the high-risk contaminants. Now, these are people who don't really care about this stuff. That doesn't make sense. So I will provide you with some more written comments.
Okay, that'd be
on a bunch
lovely.
of items.
Yes,
But
and
I don't want to.
I took some of your time, but thank you. Some of the things that you presented, we are trying to work on, and multi-units are challenging in many respects. So we are trying to work on. Thank you very much for your testimony. Okay. So can we let Ryan get to the last item? And Dr. Brown, if you have to leave, you just go ahead and let us know and check out. But let's have Ryan try to get through this one item, okay?
And yes, Madam Chair, I do have to step away unless there's something else we got to vote on. I have another meeting coming up.
There's not anything to vote on. This is information, and maybe you can send it to him.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
So Ryan will send you some of what will be, he'll present, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Sure,
you
good
for
to
your
see
extra
you.
time.
Thank you.
So just very briefly, we had hoped to be presenting to council later this month, recommendation actually today, be a recommendation from this body, and then taking the council later in the month, raise recommendation. As we talked briefly last time, Marion County is considering a increase to the disposal rates within Marion County. Earlier this month at a work session, staff presented a $30 per ton increase. That would go from $87.45 up to $117.45 per ton. That also includes, after that, an annual escalation of about 2.5%. So that would help eliminate that no rate for a long time and then big jumps. So hoping to put in a smaller annual increase of 2.5% is what has been presented. At this point, we don't, so that was what was presented. At this point, I don't know when the commissioner will be making a decision on that. So that was part of the why we adjusted our November meeting from the 20th to the 13th, with the hope that we'll have something, or we'll know more, have some assurance of what that's going to be or what the decision is going to be by the 13th, so that this body can make a recommendation. Hoping to then have the public hearing on the 24th of November. That's going to put a little bit of a crunch on our haulers, give them 1 month instead of regular 2 months for notification. There's some other complexities in this, in that if the county doesn't make a decision by mid-November, we may need to just move forward with the information that we have.
Okay.
Now, on the Marion County side, which is what this relates to, we weren't suggesting or recommending any increases January 1st, 2026 anyway. So that kind of makes things a little bit easier. We may just move forward with the proposed rates for Polk County, or just move forward with what the best information that we have for that November 24th council meeting for a public hearing. If then in either late 2025 or early 2026, the county makes a decision on that impacts what our rates in Marion County would be, we may need to come back with a mid-year adjustment, say first quarter, second quarter, to adjust those.
Okay.
So
Sure.
that's what I wanted to just tell you, nothing to decide, but give you kind of a heads up. And so as you see things change or move around, that's kind of what to expect. But my plan is November 13th, one way or another, to bring to this body a recommendation for solid waste rates for 2026 and 2027.
And the goal is still to try to have a little bit more consistency in the rates with Polk and Marion County. I think
We'll
that.
likely see that in about 2 years, where,
Okay,
where
after 2
things
years.
get, but right now we're not there
Mhm.
with Rehab and some of
Mm-hmm.
the changes there, a transfer station in Polk County, things happening in Marion County. I don't, the hope is that we can have, one rate citywide. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but that's certainly my hope, and try to simplify some things.
Makes sense.
But we have already recognized and you've already made it clear that Polk County is needing to increase, as you did in either last time or the time before.
Yeah.
That Polk County will need to increase just to be able to meet their needs
Right.
at
Right.
this time.
Right.
And that's all I have.
Well, that was a very big meeting. Thank you. And we did push off a question that I had asked if we could bring forward to our committee, and it's about bulky waste. I've had some people ask if there's any way that we could do some potential neighborhood bulky waste collection. That's not necessarily critical at this point. So why don't you get the things that are needed for the 13th, and if we need to push that my question on for another meeting, I am okay with that. Because we really need to get the critical things. I feel bad that we had to run over today. Thank you all for staying. If there isn't anything else, I shall adjourn the meeting.